The challenge was meant to humiliate him. Dust swirled across the private racetrack as the sun dipped low behind the mountains, turning the sky into a golden blaze. A crowd of wealthy spectators stood around a gleaming black Lamborghini, their expensive suits and designer dresses catching the evening light. Cameras were already out, ready to record the moment they believed would become a viral joke. At the center of it all stood a confident CEO and a glamorous woman in a striking red dress who had just made a bold, mocking promise. If he could drive the Lamborghini better than the CEO, she would kiss him. But the man they were laughing at wasn't what he seemed. Before we continue, take a second to like this video, share it with someone who believes in kindness and second chances, and subscribe to the channel. Stories like this remind us that sometimes the people the world underestimates the most are the ones who surprise everyone. The man standing beside the car was named Daniel Carter, a quiet single father in his mid-30s. His clothes were simple, a faded gray shirt, worn jeans, and boots that had clearly seen years of hard work. In his hand he held a large wrench, which had only fueled the crowd's laughter moments earlier. To them, he looked like nothing more than a mechanic who had wandered into a place he didn't belong. But Daniel hadn't wandered in by accident. Just an hour earlier, his old pickup truck had broken down near the racetrack entrance. With his 10-year-old daughter Lily waiting in the passenger seat, Daniel had pushed the truck to the side of the road and walked toward the crowd, hoping someone might help him call a tow truck. Instead, he had walked straight into the middle of a luxury car showcase hosted by a famous tech CEO named Victor Hale. Victor was the type of man who built his reputation on winning. His company had made him a billionaire before 40, and his love for expensive cars had become legendary. Tonight he had brought out his prized Lamborghini to entertain investors and influencers. When Daniel approached, asking politely if anyone knew a nearby mechanic shop, the laughter had started almost instantly. The glamorous woman in red, an influencer named Vanessa, had looked Daniel up and down before making her challenge, her voice dripping with sarcasm. If the mechanic could beat the CEO on the track, she would kiss him right there in front of everyone. The crowd loved it. Victor smirked, confident the outcome would only boost his reputation. But Daniel hadn't reacted with anger or embarrassment. Instead, he had simply looked toward the track, quiet and thoughtful, as if something deep in his memory had awakened. Because years ago, before life had taken everything from him, Daniel Carter had been one of the most promising racing drivers in the country. A devastating accident had ended that dream overnight. Medical bills followed. His wife passed away during Lily's birth complications, leaving him alone with a newborn and mountains of debt. Racing had become a luxury he could never afford again. To survive, Daniel turned to what he knew best, fixing engines. For 10 years he worked in small garages, raising Lily with every ounce of strength he had. No one here knew that story. To them, he was just a poor mechanic. Now, as Victor tossed him the Lamborghini keys like it was a joke, Daniel caught them calmly. For a brief moment, the weight of the metal in his palm brought back memories of roaring engines and endless racetracks. The crowd waited, grinning. The race began. Victor shot forward instantly, the Lamborghini screaming across the track with raw power. Cheers erupted from the crowd as cameras followed the billionaire's flawless start. Daniel's first lap was quiet. Too quiet. Some spectators started laughing again, convinced he was terrified of damaging the car. But Daniel wasn't scared. He was studying the track, reading every curve and slope the way a seasoned racer always did. By the second lap, something changed. The Lamborghini suddenly moved with frightening precision. Daniel pushed the car harder, accelerating through corners that should have forced him to slow down. The tires screamed against the asphalt as the black machine cut through the track like it had come alive. The laughter stopped. Victor glanced in his mirror. Daniel was catching up. By the third lap, the impossible happened. Daniel overtook the CEO on a sharp curve that even professional drivers struggled with. Gasps rippled through the crowd as the once laughing spectators stared in disbelief. The quiet mechanic was dominating the race. Victor pushed harder, but it was already too late. Daniel drove with the calm confidence of someone who had spent years mastering speed and danger. Every turn, every acceleration, every movement was flawless. When the Lamborghini crossed the finish line, Daniel was far ahead. The racetrack fell completely silent. Dust settled slowly around the car as Daniel stepped out, placing the keys gently on the hood. His expression held no pride, no arrogance, just the quiet humility of a man who had already lived through much bigger victories and losses. Victor walked forward slowly, stunned. Vanessa, the woman who had made the challenge, looked completely speechless. But the biggest moment didn't come from the crowd. It came from the small voice calling from the roadside. Daniel turned to see Lily running toward him, her eyes shining with pride. She threw her arms around him tightly, completely unaware that she had just watched her father shock an entire crowd of millionaires. Victor finally broke the silence. Instead of anger, he began to clap. Soon the entire crowd followed. Because in that moment, everyone realized something important: talent, dignity, and strength don't disappear just because life becomes difficult. Victor approached Daniel with a respectful smile. What started as a joke had turned into something unforgettable. The billionaire offered Daniel a position testing high-performance vehicles for his company, a job that would finally give him the chance to return to the world he once loved. Daniel didn't celebrate wildly. He simply looked down at Lily, realizing that every sacrifice, every long night fixing broken engines, had been worth it. The woman in the red dress quietly admitted she had underestimated him. But Daniel didn't ask for the promised kiss. Instead, he smiled politely and walked back toward his old pickup truck. Because the real victory had never been about impressing strangers. It had always been about showing his daughter that no matter how much the world doubts you, perseverance and humility can still lead you back to greatness. If this story touched your heart, take a moment to like the video, share it with someone who needs a reminder to never judge others too quickly, and subscribe for more powerful stories like this. And before we finish, I have a special request. Comment below with the word respect if you believe every person deserves a second chance, no matter where life has taken them. Because sometimes, the quietest person in the crowd is the one carrying the most extraordinary story.